eno ye Extreme Media UJ. Subscribe for all updates.
I just have one question, actually not a question, clarification. I want to tap the Harvard brain also, and I'm very sure it's not in bad faith. Honorable SCG, I just want to seek your interpretation of Article 8A of the Constitution. You've, in your paper, talked about public interest. I can just read it briefly. 8A, 8A, subsection 1 and 2, or clause 1 and 2. Uganda, under 1, shall be governed based on the principles of national interest and common good enshrined in the national objectives and directives of the principles of state. 2. Parliament shall make relevant laws for the purposes of giving full effect to the clause 1 of this article. Then, under Directive 4, which you've cited of the Constitution, 1, 2, and 3, the state and citizens of Uganda shall at all times defend the independence, then sovereignty and territorial integrity of Uganda. 2. The state, highlight that word, the state and citizens of Uganda shall endeavor to build national strength in political, economic, and social spheres to avoid undue dependence on other countries and institutions. And 3, the state, again highlight the state, shall endeavor to mobilize, organize, and empower Ugandan people to build independent and sustainable foundation for the development of Uganda. In light of this bill, what is the role of the state? Because you said it should be thrown out. But under Article 8A, we have to make laws to ensure the protection of this interest. So what is the role of the state looking at this bill?
Thank you. The Honorable Yusuf Sivambi, I'm glad you acknowledge the strength of the Harvard brain, and it's courteous that you seek clarification. Honorable Keo.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank the Right Honorable SG for the presentation. I wanted to draw his attention to his paper on page 3 and subheading, the limitations do not serve the legitimate public interest. And when you come to A, where actually you say that is people may come out and oppose, and you clearly stated that actually the opposition is supposed to make sure that mobilizes the citizens from influencing the public to oppose the policy of government. One of the policies of the government is UPE, is PDM. I wanted you to put clarity on this. Actually, that the opposition we should oppose PDM that brings people money into people's pockets. I wanted you to put more light on this, UPE, because you are saying that actually when we should oppose government policies.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Keo. You know, Honorable Keo is from the islands, so put that into consideration when you're responding. Who is next? Honorable David Livingston Zijan.
Mine is exactly what Okeo's concern was, but for the record, I'll put it in my own words. First, I must commend the eloquence of the Secretary General.
The Honorable Fox is not appreciating that. Please, give credit where it's due.
For the Secretary General's comfort, you know, as I was coming into the gate, we came in together with Honorable Mulima Mayuni, Honorable here on my left, and he saw the color of my shirt, and he said, all along you subscribe to this party. And I said, but this color existed before parties came. I am the Dean of Independence in the House, so please know that I am very independent. So I think that while your presentation is wonderful and it really captures my admiration, I also get concerned when you say your goal is to oppose government policy. This, as he has stated, implies that even if government says we will bring national insurance, health insurance for all, you will oppose. Universal education, you will oppose, because the goal of your existence is to oppose. And so, it then makes me jittery to the subsequent presentations you make and the indictments to the different clauses, because I'm thinking, okay, you would oppose anyway. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these are negative or injurious to society. You're simply doing your job, which is to oppose. So if you might want to revisit that particular statement, it would be helpful to me.
What is your question, Honorable Zijan?
My question, actually mine wasn't a question, it was seeking clarification.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Is that part of what we can do?
Yeah,
seeking
sure,
clarification?
Sure.
Yes, I was.
Thank you. Odoi Benadonin.
Thank you, Chair. I want to draw the attention of the Secretary General of NUP to page 2, item 3. And the wording is, notwithstanding the unconstitutional nature of some of their provisions. My interpretation of this is that you actually agree with some of the provisions in the bill. In your presentation, you conveniently omitted any mention of some of the provisions, which I think you indicated under this line. Is this, as you did say, merely opposing or selective criticism? Yet I know part of your work or role is actually to scrutinize and then improve on a matter before you in this committee. So would you please come out of the blanket rejection and actually spell out the provisions where the interpretation of this where indicated some of the provisions. Thank you.
If any. Let's have the last one. Okay? Yes, Honorable. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Mine is goes to the Secretary General of NUP. First of all, I appreciate for your presentation, but mine goes on the issue of diaspora. I would like to bring it to the attention, the Secretary General of NUP, that actually it's not only NUP which has a support base in the diaspora. All the parties, political parties, they have support base in the diaspora. So the law will not only affect NUP, but it will affect across the board. For example, NRM has even a directorate of in its secretariat in charge of diaspora. So NUP, I want to allay your fears that this law is only affecting you, so it will affect the whole across the board of all political parties.
That's order. That's the Honorable Rauben Arinitwe. He has allayed his fears. I had given Sechitoleko before the Honorable Rauben came in. Sechitoleko, do you want to oppose your Secretary General?
No, sir.
Okay.
Procedure,
Honorable Chair.
Procedure?
Honorable, I am aware, Honorable Chair, that Honorable Sechi, my wonderful neighbor here, sat at the Secretariat of NUP to draft the position the Secretary General has just presented before us. Is he therefore proceeded in order to make further submissions after his eloquent Secretary General has presented?
Thank you, Honorable Fox. The Honorable Sechitoleko will make his submissions as a member of the committee. It's actually his right. Please go on.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for the wise ruling. And I need your protection, Chair. Still,
you are protected.
Oh, Sergeant, at home to be near here because I'm not safe. Honorable Chair and colleague members, Robert Sekitoleko and maybe our visitors. Robert Sekitoleko is my name, a member of Parliament, Bamunanika County, Luweero District. I'm a member of National Unity Platform, the Almighty Party. Just to thank Almighty, just to thank my Secretary General for the submission and the breakdown of issues per issue. On behalf of Ugandans who are there, because now we are their voice, thank you for coming up with the voice of somewhere, somehow. And I think with this submission, the government will think twice as you have pledged.
Honorable Sekitoleko.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Sekitoleko. Okay, I think now we can give the right Honorable Secretary. Oh, our senior member here will wrap it up from this side. We agree that I'm not giving any other person a chance this side after the Honorable Katuntu.
Well, thank you, Chair. The Secretary General alludes to legitimate and illegitimate intentions. I would like to limit myself to the legitimate ones, because illegitimacy sometimes becomes speculative. Let us go to the legitimate ones as presented. We want to assume that the bill is brought in good faith, and we address ourselves to the good faith which has been brought. One, you talk about the bill being unconstitutional. Reason is that it is founded on the definition of foreigner, which in your view and many other people's view is that it exceeds beyond what is provided for. Can we now, as a matter of clarification, number one, if this committee looked at the definition of foreigner and we come up with a different definition other than the one in the bill, would that calm your fears? Especially that you say that literally, I think you mentioned around 6 clauses or 7 clauses are based around the definition of, it's about this unconstitutionality. You look, if you are talk about the entire bill, the unconstitutionality of the entire bill would be looked at in reference to the object of the bill. However, if the object of the bill is actually constitutional, then you go specifically to details of clauses, because you can have the object constitutional, but many other clauses unconstitutional, because we need to make that distinction of the bill being constitutional and many clauses being unconstitutional. If, in my view, we address the constitutionality of the clauses as you've outlined them in your submission, would that calm down your fears? If we go clause by clause and you see which particular clause offends which particular provision of the Constitution, would that calm down your fears? Because for us to come as a committee that the bill is unconstitutional, we must have a basis. The entire bill cannot be unconstitutional because 1 or 2 clauses are unconstitutional. Unless the entire, when you look at the object of the bill, it is clearly unconstitutional. Clarification from you?
No. Allow the Honorable Katuntu to submit.
Well, on that point, I'll end there.
Were you seeking clarification from Honorable Katuntu or the Secretary General? No, he has closed. Let's go to the Secretary General to make his responses and then we'll close this.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and members, and thank you very much for the kind words. Number one, in response to Honorable Sivambi, yes, Article 81 provides for national interest, but I also want to refer you to Article 43 of the Constitution, which talks about public interest and clearly says that public interest shall not permit political persecution. This bill intends, for all intents and purposes, to persecute the people of Uganda. It is intended at political persecution. And so national interest, and I'm trying to infer public interest into national interest, it cannot in any way stand insofar as it promotes political persecution. And so, but also secondly, when you say what would be the role of Parliament, this protection of sovereignty bill as it is not the law envisaged under Article 8A. The law envisaged thereunder is a law that would clarify what national interest amounts to. That's not what this bill is doing. So this bill just refers to national interest, but does not even define what national interest is. So if you ask me what Article 8A, the import of that would be, because it says that Parliament, Uganda shall be governed based on principles of national interest and common good. And we all know that that's not what is happening today, both in practice and in legislation. So I think that, in fact, the enactment of this bill into law would be contrary to Article 8A that you're making reference to. Now, I did mention something about opposing government policy, and I think some honorable members...
Sir, you see, the problem comes when lawyers are trying to argue. I think what we should, as a clarification, if this bill was to operationalize any provision of the Constitution, the object would state so.
Absolutely. And that's what he was asking. That's what the Honorable was asking, what would be the role of Parliament. And I said, this law is not really addressing Article 8A of the Constitution. It doesn't. About government programs, I think we have a right to criticize government programs. And when I say we are in opposition, it does not mean that we are going to be opposing every single thing. But what I'm saying is that we have a right, and the people of Uganda, whether in Uganda or in the diaspora, should have a right to oppose those government policies or programs. And people, you know, Ugandans in the diaspora should even have a right to encourage the people of Uganda. If a person is in the diaspora and wants to communicate to the people of Uganda or mobilize them to oppose a certain policy which they think is oppressive or repressive towards them, they must have a right to do that. And that's why we talk about alternatives, because if, for example, you talked about UPE and PDM, as an UP we have a better understanding of how those programs would be for the benefit of the people. So it's not, we have a right to offer alternatives and definitely to oppose those things which we do not agree with. Now, someone, I think the Honorable Member also asked about paragraph 3, which begins, notwithstanding the unconstitutional nature of some of their provisions. I think you misread that paragraph, because that paragraph refers to other laws. It refers to the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the Computer Misuse, the Political Parties and Organizations Act, the Presidential Elections Act, etc. That's not a reference to this bill. That's why we say, notwithstanding the constitutional and unconstitutional nature of some of their provisions, other laws that already address the defects purportedly identified, the bill include, and we give a list thereunder. So it's not that we are conceding that there are some provisions which are constitutional. No, not at all. The Honorable Member said that the law won't affect only NUP, which is why you should also oppose it. Definitely. I was here to speak on behalf of NUP Diaspora, But now that you agree that it will also affect your diaspora, then you should, as NRM, oppose it with all your lives. Now, Honorable Katuntu, the senior, talked about, his question is, what if the definition of foreigner is rectified? And my submission would be that it would require the withdrawal of this bill, because the entire objectives of this bill are based on the definition as it is stated. So it would probably require you to withdraw it and redraft. If you look at, that's why in our submission begins with the objectives of this bill. We begin by opposing, because if the objective of the bill and every other provision relates to this animal called the foreigner as has been defined, then I think even if you changed, you cannot only change the definition of foreigner and retain the other provisions thereunder in their current form, because then that would defeat the definition of foreigner as it is. I hasten to add that the cardinal stated objective of this bill is to promote the sovereignty of the people of Uganda, but in fact it takes that away. This bill takes out the sovereignty of the people of Uganda in the objectives. So that's why I'm saying that the entire bill is based on this idea of the foreigner as has been currently defined. And I think if you wanted to change that definition of foreigner, it would require this bill to be withdrawn. They go back and do a good job. If they wanted to bring a law that promotes sovereignty and not tag it to what they have tagged it onto. So that's, and then you talk about constitutionality. Again, from the objectives, we are saying that right from the objectives throughout all the provisions, everything is really, really unconstitutional if you look at it. The broad, for example, Honorable, you know very well that in the Karamaji Andrew case, the Constitutional Court was very clear about provisions that are vague, that are so broad, and I think that has come through many other provisions, including the Kabaziguruka case. Now, we are saying that if you look at the several provisions of this bill, they are so broad, they are not specific. You cannot see what they are intending to address. They are trying to catch everybody and nobody. So that's why you cannot say that by changing the definition of foreigner, you would achieve constitutionality, in our humble opinion.
Thank you, Right Honorable Secretary General of the National Interplatform. Now that he has even received a round of applause from the stakeholders, I hope that points that have come out so clearly and well canvassed, you will just make reference to those points. You don't have again to labor yourself, because he has been very articulate on quite a number of things, so you will save time by just making, maybe concurring with the Secretary General on some matters. So we thank you so much. Matters well captured. We have the memorandum, and we can give you assurance that all the matters discussed will be given due attention. And we ask you to take your leave. Thank you so much. And the Honorable Secretary will give us the opportunity to escort you, as he's very excited about the boss being in the house. Good. So we have next is Muslim charity organizations.
Abalungi abatuuliriza era abatulaba olunaku olwaleero tuchaddeko ewa Sheikh Ashraf Dembe.
Sebo nsanyusa okubalaba. Amannya agange Yezese Ashraf Dembe akola ku bizibu by'enjawulo. Omuntu singa aba alina ebirwadde tumusomereddwa, tumuwa amazzi ga lukuya nga bw'obadde ogalaba, tugenda abantu ku kyoto ne twokya emizimu emibi egibabaamu n'okulomba edduwa. Abantu singa abeera ng'ali wano atuuse sobola okumulombera edduwa, ne waba atatuuse nga mpadde amanya ge naye ng'ali wala. Neetaase ennamba yange yeeno eri 0707363711. Nammwe bannyinaffe abali ebweru oyagala okuba nti oyagala okulombera ku dduwa ng'olina ebizibu, viza zibuze, amaka gakolongotana, sente zikola zimpita mu ngalo, ojja kumpeereza ekifaananyi kyo n'amannya go, ebyo byokka bijja kummala, nja kukulombera edduwa, ojja kutereera. Olunaku olusembayo mu mwezi mba n'edduwa ey'awamu ffenna n'abalwadde bange abakadde n'abapya. Salaamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.